I'm Matt with Patriot Docks. In this video, you'll learn how to assemble and install a Patriot floating dock. You'll also learn how to install and remove it from the water. You'll learn why Patriot Docks are awesome docks for the average Joe. Anyone can own, assemble, and install this dock. This video covers the assembly and installation of floating docks. For information on rolling docks, please see our separate assembly video. Take inventory and inspect for any defects before you begin. It takes on average about 30 minutes to assemble each 4x8 frame. Start with hand tightening. Long bolts are used to connect the connecting rail from one frame to the next, and the other bolts are the same size for frame assembly. Assemble the frame on land. Decking panels drop in after the frame is completed, installed in the water. Well, after unloading the truck and emptying the pallets, all the parts were brought down here and laid out by the lake. The first thing to note is the decking, which does arrive unassembled. However, it was pre-assembled for this video. The 4x8 frames also come unassembled. Next, the floats. First are the gray side floats that come with the premium floating docks, and the black floats, which are the primary flotation for all floating docks. Next is the box with assembly hardware, as well as the instruction manual. The next step would be to lay out your hardware and take inventory of what you have. So first we have the frame assembly hardware. This will actually not be in the hardware box. This will be inside each frame with the corner gussets. There are 4 J-bolts, 4 washers, and 4 nylock nuts. Splice tubes are only needed when connecting frame to frame on 4-foot sides without a hinge. These tubes will be inserted between the side tubes to make a hard connection. For our configuration today, we will not use splice tubes, as we'll be instead connecting frames with the hinge, but we will demonstrate the installation. And we have the 3-inch piling sleeves. These are for the floating docks. They're 3 inches so that if you do put a piling through the piling sleeve, there's plenty of space for the dock to move up and down with fluctuations in water. Then we have an auger. This is optional. That'll be used to drive a piling down into the lake bed. The 4-inch bolt kit will be used to attach frame to frame. The float plugs for the black dock floats will be in the hardware box. We've got the hinge kit plates and the hinge tube. We've got the M6x30 button head bolts. And then we're doing a poly decking today. So we have the screws and the stringers to assemble our poly decking, and we'll get into how to assemble that decking in the decking installation videos. For the poly decking, we have the deck lockers. These will be used to secure the decking, loosely secure the decking to the frame. So we've gone through all of the hardware, all of the components. We've made sure there's no defects in the products or any missing parts that could have fallen out in transit, and we have everything we need to get going. All of Patriot Docks is a 4x8 modular design, so it's highly customizable. Today we are doing a 24-foot T, or a 24-foot T patio, which means a 12x8 patio at the end. So 3 4x8 frames bolted side to side, and then 2 more 4x8 frames going back to shore. When we talk about length, all of our lengths include the shore ramp. So all of these sections will be floating except for the shore ramp, which will be hinged and connected to shore. Cut open a frame and lay out the components and start assembling. Now that we've opened up the frame, you'll see the angle brackets. So first we'll have 4 7s. One of the 7s will be in the center. Inside one of the 7s, you will have the frame assembly hardware, and then we'll have the angles 5s and 6s. So first we will lay out each of the frame components in their assembled position. In each frame assembly, there will be 2 side tubes. There will also be 2 stringer tubes, 1 center tube, and 2 end tubes. There's a distinct hole on each end tube that will be used for float mounting. Make sure they are facing inward. Then you've got the 7s on each corner. You'll have 4 5 brackets, each running along the stringer tube. And there will be 2 6s connecting the center tube to the side tubes. 1, 2. There will not be a bracket on each corner. All right, we've got our dock configuration laid out here. The 24-foot T, or the 24-foot T patio. There's a couple of things to note. There's a lot of different ways to do this. One way that we're doing it is we're going to have a hinge in between the first 2 sections and a hinge in between the second section in the patio. So we typically recommend a hinge before a patio, or a hinge every 16 feet. And you absolutely need a hinge from your shore ramp to your first floating dock, so we're gonna have 2 hinges within 8 feet. If we were going out one more section and doing a 32-foot floating tee, we would have hinge, hard connection, and then hinge before the patio. All right, we're gonna start at the lake end of our configuration and start assembling our frames. We're gonna start with the corner brackets. On my center tube, depending on which side I have my first 5 bracket, I'm gonna switch sides over here, down the stringer into the center tube. Then I'm gonna use one M10 by 60 connect all the way through both 5s.
Now we have 4 angle 5 brackets installed. They're alternating sides. When building a patio section, or when you have to join 4-foot side to 4-foot side, we recommend joining side tubes together or end tubes together after attaching the frame to the black floats, which we'll demonstrate shortly.
And before we install the floats, we're just gonna put the float plugs in with a 3/8 Allen wrench. And to attach the floats, we're gonna use our J-bolt hardware. So it'll be 4 J-bolts per float. 2 J-bolts will attach to the side tube. 2 J-bolts will attach to the end tube.
As mentioned earlier, when joining 8-foot side to 8-foot side, or 4-foot side to 4-foot side with a hard connection and not a hinge connection, it is easier to attach the frames to the floats with J-bolt hardware first.
Now instead of the M10 by 60s, we're going to use the M10 by 100s or 4-inch bolt kits and run them through both frames.
5 bolts make the connection, 2 on the first corner bracket, 1 through the middle bracket, and 2 more on the last bracket.
So here we have our first hinge connection. I'm going to take the hinge plate, I'm going to run that bolt through and all the way through the hinge. All right, so most docks will have a piling sleeve here or here, it depends on your application. For our dock today, we're gonna have side floats here, but I'm just gonna demonstrate installing it at a corner bracket. So we'll undo the corner bracket hardware. With the piling sleeves, I'm gonna have to put the bolt head toward the frames.
If you are connecting 4-foot side to 4-foot side without a hinge, you will use the splice tubes. The M10 by 60 will run through the splice tube, through the side tubes, and into the gusseted brackets. Once you do that for both frames, use a 4-inch bolt to join the frames together, not the M10 by 60s. Then you will need to line up angle 5s on the stringer tube of both frames and run a 4-inch bolt through them both. If the hole on one of the brackets doesn't line up perfectly, just flip it over. Now that the frames are assembled and the hard connections are made, we're ready to get in the water. For easier handling, we will begin floating the assembled sections, then attach each of the next sections with a hinge while we're in the water. To do this, we will take out the necessary frame bolts in order to install the hinge plates. Then we will add the hinge rod to join the ramp to the next section. Repeat this for every section. The hinge can be tapped into place with a rubber mallet if the rod gets stuck. Use a screwdriver to secure the hinge rod with a button head bolt so the hinge does not move. We are using pilings to anchor. The piling sleeves are wide enough to allow the dock to travel up and down on a 1.5-inch inside diameter Schedule 40 galvanized pipe with an auger. This is a rigid method of anchoring and is generally preferred for water depths of up to 4 feet. Starting with the shore side, add panels one at a time, walking over the installed panels to go deeper. You can tighten deck lockers from above the decking with a flathead screwdriver. It's not necessary, but we prefer to add the side floats with the dock already in the water. To do so, you will need to replace the 60-meter frame assembly hardware with 4-inch bolts that came with the side floats. If you're installing next to a piling sleeve, the plate of the piling sleeve will fit behind the side float.
Do I need to remove my dock from the water every year? Well, if your dock is in freezing water, it's recommended to remove it every year. Frozen lakes can heave and shift differently, and your dock can be ruined by ice. What is the distance from the decking surface to the water? Is roughly 12 inches without weight on the dock. The more weight you have on the dock, the closer it is to the water. What do I do if there's a severe storm coming? Well, the drop-in decking allows deck panels to be removed at a minimum, and the whole dock can be removed if possible. Though Patriot Docks survive many severe storms, it is always recommended to be cautious and prepared to remove your boats and docks when planning allows. How much weight can a dock hold? Well, the frame supports 45 pounds per square foot, and the dock can hold 390 pounds for float. How stable is a floating dock? All floating docks allow some movement, but the stability depends on a few factors. First, the dock needs to have plenty of flotation. Standard packages provide the minimum required float capacity. Extra floats can be added to increase stability. Second, the shape of the dock is more stable when there are patio sections off to the side or side stability floats added to the design, whereas straight docks tend to move a little more. Lastly, the anchoring system should allow for only vertical movement up and down, and this will lead to a more stable dock. Contact us with all questions. You now have an amazing dock assembled and installed, and you are ready to enjoy it with your family and friends. From our family to yours, we wish you a happy summer.